Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. There's this weird thing that happens when a brand gets too good at what it does. Its name becomes the thing. Kleenex, Coke, Sharpie. And in the world of hydration and sports performance, that thing is pickle juice. The drink that started off as a half joke in locker rooms, a quick fix for cramps, is now used by professional athletes on TV every weekend. But the real story isn't about electrolytes or vinegar or sodium content. It's about truth. It's about what happens when you build something so real, you don't have to fake a narrative around it. My guest today is Filip Keuppens, the CEO and force behind the Pickle Juice Company, a man who came from the world of Fortune 50s, walked into a business doing $250,000 a year, and turned it into a global science-backed brand trusted by pros, soldiers, and weekend warriors alike. Filip, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Hey, William, it's great to be here. I'll try to back up that flattering introduction. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, I do want to give a quick shout out to Matt Kovacs, the president over at Blaze PR, previous guest on the show, for putting us in touch to be able to make this happen. So thank you, Matt. Before we get into the good stuff, I do want to quickly announce our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, on to the good stuff. So I read that when you joined in 2015, Pickle Juice was doing just $250,000 in sales. Today, it's a globally recognized sports drink. What did you see then that no one else did?
Yeah, it's when I joined the company, it was actually interesting. I was sort of trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. I came from 20th Century Fox at the time in the hard goods space, so DVDs and Blu-rays, and then that industry kind of ended overnight. So I was consulting and sort of trying to figure out what my next project was going to be, and I had the opportunity to meet through someone I knew socially, the guys running the Pickle Juice Company, and it was sort of a side hustle at the time, but having a background in that, sports, and also a little bit of food science, I was like really intrigued. I thought it was a very interesting project. And being completely honest, they're like, hey, we want you to join this. And I was like, I'm not sure you have the scale to be bringing people in. And they were really, they took an interesting approach and said, well, we'll put something in front of us that you think works for us and for you. And we did. And 10 years later, we were recently acquired by a private equity firm. So now we're calling it Pickle Juice 3. Thank you. Pickle Juice 3.0. We're going to try to scale this thing over the next 5 or so years and try to get, find a strategic partner to really, really make this a household product.
I love that. What's the biggest misconception people have about Pickle Juice, the company?
That is pickle brine. I think during your introduction, you mentioned that a lot of companies suffer the same fate where they become endemic with sort of a category. And because we were sort of bootstrapping and very organic in our growth, didn't really have the tools and resources to differentiate between pickle brine and pickle juice. If you think about it, nobody's out there juicing pickles, right? Like there's no natural thing in the space. But when you've got a company that's like, oh wait, this thing kind of tastes like pickles, we're taking a completely different approach to functional bev. We're calling it a hyper-functional beverage. We want to make sure it's not intimidating to the consumer. So we sort of leaned into the flavor a little bit and just adopted it. But now we've got a lot of people. Interestingly, it's a phenomenon or a problem, if you will, only in the US. In our overseas markets, it's not that big an issue because they don't have a huge pickle culture in different countries. But now one of our biggest challenges is the differentiation between our product and pickle brine. And making sure that people know the difference, because they're like, oh, I drank this stuff out of the jar and it didn't do anything for me. And we're like, well, you didn't
drink the right stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that this is like a trifecta for you because it's got sports, it's got food science, it's got CPG. These are like three things that were all a part of, what you were already doing. How did those worlds collide for you?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's it's just a weird happenstance. I was out riding motorcycles with this guy, and he's like, "Hey, my dad's got this side hustle thing, and they're trying to figure out how to scale it. You want to go talk to him?" I'm like, "Sure." And I was like, "Wow." And to your point, I was like, "Hey, these are kind of three things that I know a little bit about." And I developed a reputation for like different go-to-market strategies and different ways to create, if you will, incubate a company. So I think the stars kind of aligned for me. I'll probably admit that it wasn't even a conscious thing at the time. It certainly has become one since.
Sure.
And now we're looking at expanding into not just being the Pickle Juice Company, providers of pickle juice, but we're looking to become the preeminent hyperfunctional beverage company, and we're exploring different ailments, different treatments, different things where we can deliver acute, real remedies using food grade products that are clean and transparent.
You took a risk. The company was small. There were likely moments, nights, sleepless nights where you're thinking, what did I do? This is crazy. But when did that start to flip for you and said, hey, we're doing this. We're going to make it. This is going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I remember one day walking into the office of one of the two former partners, and I was like, it's wild. Like every single week we have a thing that could put us under, right? And that's pretty typical of companies that are at that stage, because they don't have really the tools, the resources to survive a big miss. And there wasn't like this one big, huge aha moment, other than maybe when we secured Walmart, right? That was our big placement thing. But by that time, we were chipping away at some grocers. We were chipping away at becoming relevant on Amazon, and our B2C stuff was doing pretty well. But I don't know if we ever were like, hey, we're good. And I think that's probably healthy. A little organizational imposter syndrome is probably healthy. I talked to other would-be entrepreneurs and I said, look, never become financially dependent on your project until it's sustainable. Because if you do, it's almost guaranteed to fail. Because if you're not nurturing that baby that is that company, that concept, that thing, until it really, really is sustainable in a sense that it's generating positive EBITDA and positive cash flow and revenue, it's a really fragile, delicate thing, right? That's why 80% of startups fail within the first couple of years. So I think it's just the patience, and then recognizing those moments for what they are and being very calculated about your risk. So unfortunately, it's not this beautiful aha thing for us. I mean, for some people it is. But for us, it wasn't. It was more of a traditional slog, getting this thing to market and doing it in a very real and organic way.
We've all seen those videos of, the racer celebrating before they've actually crossed the finish line, only to be passed right at the last second. And so what you're saying makes sense to me, as far as you got to keep your head down, keep going, keep pushing through. If you let go of that, you're probably going to get passed up.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first athlete or team that maybe they reached out to you and said, hey, we're using pickle juice, or maybe you discovered it organically, you just happened to see it and you're watching, the football game and you're like, that's us, right? And they didn't hide the logo. Like, you remember the first one?
Yeah, we developed a relationship with the New Orleans Saints a long time ago. And the nutritionist there, Jamie Meeks, is incredible. Also over the Pelicans, and they were early adopters, early believers. And it was pretty funny. And it used to be kind of like a secret that a lot of teams wouldn't really um, like expose, right? I remember one time we got an order for like 20 cases of product to this residential address in Norman, Oklahoma from like a Mrs. Stoops. And we're like, hey, what's Bob Stoops' wife's name? And then we're like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess he's using the product. And we would get these like large random orders from these hotels and be like, okay, this hotel in this city where it's like, who's playing there and where are they staying? Like, well, I guess that team's ordering it. But now it's a lot more overt. It's become more common and received. And SMU was an early adopter as well. So, I mean, I think the Saints and SMU were probably the first programs that were pretty overt about it, where we started seeing it during games and on sidelines where the athletic training staff was using this in a way that aligned with how we prescribe usage, if you will, and partnering with us on like, okay, how do we use this? When do we use this? How does it work? And since then, we've been attending the National Athletic Trainers Association conferences. Kat Myers, who's running our HPLR program, which is our high profile partnership program, has done a fantastic job of getting us in front of like the WNBA, the NBA, the MLB, and some of these others. But more often than not, we're not approaching the teams. We're approaching the athletic trainers and the dietitians of the teams, because we're really not trying to like buy exposure. Part of what we're trying to do is be very, very authentic. So we're educating people on its usage. We invite them to try it, and more often than not, they'll then turn into consumers because they see this stuff actually works.
That's the key, right? The product still has to deliver more than what the marketing hype is for anything. And we see a lot of brands that try to go the opposite direction with that. You brought up something interesting about hotels. We talk a lot about LTV and about making sure that you're reaching your customer where they are. And I never really thought about if your customer happens to be a professional sports player or musician or actor, like they are traveling all over all the time. Is there some way that you are, more intentional about making sure that you are reaching them where they are, as opposed to just, hey, we sent out this email like we do for every other customer?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of our biggest go-to-market strategies is partnering with what we call participatory endurance events. And by that, I mean like ultramarathon, endurance cycling is really big for us. And we're engaging that consumer at the point when they need the product the most.
Sure.
And we select those types of events because those people are doing their own research. They're doing their research on the internet, and they're able to experience how well this stuff works when they need it the most. So we're very intentional about how we do our sort of experiential activations. And like that, I referenced the conferences like National Athletic Trainers Association and others, where we get in front of the nutritionists and the dietitians and the athletic trainers, and we're like, hey, try it. This is how you use it. Let us know how it works. And then, like I said, we have a person that's sort of dedicated to nurturing and developing those relationships and being a resource for them. But we actively avoid hard selling those folks because it's about the functionality and the truth.
You don't just do a few of these. If I remember correctly, you do like 300 to 500 events a year. You're like, this is pretty substantial. Wouldn't it just be easier to like, push the button and run Facebook ads instead of going to 300 and 500 events? How do you manage that?
Yeah, we have a team that manages it. We've got a bunch of people. I mean, for a long time as we were scaling, everybody in the company, regardless of what their job was, went to events. And we felt that was important because they're interacting with our consumers. They're understanding what this product's about. They're not just punching a clock when they check in. They're like, oh, okay, this thing does this for these people. And we're really trying to get people to embrace that. Candidly, it becomes more difficult to, as you scale and become a bigger company, to get people to really make that connection and that investment. And as a leader, it's a challenge, right? It's challenging to get people to be as passionate about the thing that as you are, and as some of the people who built it with you, without being overbearing or seeming autocratic or unwavering. And that's the thing I struggle with at times, and it's trying to find that balance between staying true to our cause without sort of sounding unwavering or inflexible. And that's, honestly, as a leader, that's probably the one thing that I find the most difficult thing to get right every single day.
I talk a lot about doing the things that don't scale. And I would have equated going to events as one of those things that doesn't scale, but you found a way to make that into a scalable thing. Do you think you could have been or would have been as successful in penetration with this if you had just run these as ads, as instead of going to all these events?
I don't think so. And it's because of a couple of reasons. One, we didn't have the resources financially to invest in the amount of ads it would have taken to tell our story. We would have had to, acquire influencers, reviewers, all of these things that we would have had to pay for. Instead, we found the people that needed the product. We weren't afraid to release our narrative and let them tell the story for us. And that's a thing I think companies are apprehensive about. But, I say all the time that if you just be the thing you want to be and sort of encourage everybody that's part of it to be that thing, then you can have success. Mm-hmm. So I think that experiential model and redefining how the experiential model works, and in a way that ties into the uniqueness of our product, has allowed us to scale in a way that's sustainable and profitable. And while we'll as we get bigger, we'll layer on more traditional forms of media. I think that the activation piece is still going to continue to be important. It's still valid. It's still relevant. I mean, there's a reason companies like Red Bull still do it.
I'm going to dig in more on this because it's one of the things that I think is the most unique about the way that you guys have gone to market compared to a lot of other people that I talk to. You're not just selling this out of the back of your trunk, right? Like there's like a plan here in place. How do you determine the ROI of different events that you guys are at? So for instance, if you're at 500, how do you know those were the right 500, as far as maybe you could have gotten the same benefit out of 400 of them and the others were extra? How are you kind of evaluating that?
There are a couple of different strategic points we look at. One is geographic alignment with key retailers and key target audiences. Two is scale and use case. Three is participant type. So we try to avoid bucket list type events. We try to avoid sort of novelty events. So what we're looking for is the lifestyle participant that we convert them to become users. We get them to be believers, but we need to make sure we're hoping that these are people that continue doing the thing that they're going to do. And what I mean by that is a significant portion, if not 70%, and I don't know if that number is accurate, but there's a large portion of people that run marathons that only run one.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
And for us, we may help that person with that one marathon, but that's not really a strategic conversion for us, in the sense that they won't become repeat users. They may say something once or twice, but unless they have another application, that time, energy, and money is better spent at like a cycling event where these people train for months and months and months and tend to do a lot of them. They invest a ton of money in their equipment, their time. and or ultra running, right, where these folks spend a ton of time training, and it's more lifestyle than it is sport. And those are the types of people that we're targeting because they're also super passionate. And if they believe in something, they will scream it from the rooftops. So those are probably the things we look at. And then some of it's subjective, right? Our team will go to these events and be like, hey, did we get something out of that? And it's a feel thing as much as it is as a quantifiable thing, where it's like, I don't know how many interactions we really had. It's also a matter of, does the event really want to partner with us, or is it a transactional relationship for them? So if it's transactional, we tend to avoid it because they're not really looking to support our message, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we tend to avoid the pay to play stuff, and we really partner with people that see this as a value add for their participants.
I love that. The whole ultra marathon thing is absolutely wild to me. I'm not a distance runner. I did the 100-meter, the pole vault, the long jump. I'm definitely short twitch, but I did run 5 miles the other day last week, and I was like, yeah, that's as far as I need to go. I don't need to go any further than that. But those 150, 50-mile, 100-mile ones are that's on another level.
It's some of the most fascinating people I've ever met too, because the sports I played, rugby and freestyle skiing. I also competed in track and field when I was younger. Those are the type of sports that you can will yourself through a game, an event, or whatever, because they're, from a relative perspective, short.
Sure.
But you can't fake your mindset in an ultra marathon because you're out there for hours and sometimes days. And these are some of the most collected, real people you'll ever meet in your life. And if you or any of your listeners or watch are ever curious about finding some really truly fascinated, centered people, go to an ultra marathon, volunteer at an aid station, and you will meet some of the most incredible people. I tell people I go to some of these things, I just collect fascinating stories, and just being out there listening to people, and it's so rewarding to be able to be part of that space.
I bet. Is there a story that you are able to share with us today?
About ultra marathons? Yeah. I met my now good friend, Kara Lubin, through this space. And Kara is an amazing human being. She founded an organization called the 100 Mile Club. And I really encourage everybody to look this up. And essentially what she does is she works with schools to teach kids that running in and of itself is an activity you can participate in. And these kids, if they run 100 miles over the course of a year or whatever, they get a shirt and they're part of the 100 Mile Club. And
wow.
she works with about, I want to say 2,500 schools in the US or something like that, to get these kids just to be active in a really healthy, engaging way. And it's
so good.
It's awesome. But Kara was telling me that she was running this ultra at one time, and these folks start like hallucinating and stuff. And she was like, in order to keep her mind centered, she was looking for the alphabet in the naturescapes that she saw, because she was like starting to hallucinate a little bit, I guess. And she's like, oh, that looks like the letter A. And she was like collecting the alphabet. I think she wrote it on her arm or something.
Wow.
But that's kind of amazing. And then Kevin and Michael and Kimberly Miller, who are also amazing people, and they spend a lot of time in the Urique Valley, working with and running with the Tarahumara, which is an indigenous tribe of amazing world-class ultra runners. And so not only are they incredible human beings, but I once asked Michael, when I was learning about the ultra running space, I said, like when do you sleep? Like how does that work into your races? He's like, yeah, I mean, anything over 4 days, I feel I have to work sleep in. And I'm like, well, the inverse must be true. I was like, holy cow, this guy's out there like running for 4 days straight. It's just unbelievable what these people are able to achieve and allow their bodies to achieve. The other thing that's fascinating about that space is that it tends to age older. Like there are so many people in their 50s and 60s and even 70s participating in these like 100K, 100-mile runs. And I think that too, it speaks to the power of the mind over the body. So yeah, I could talk ad nauseum about these stories and experiences and some of the fascinating, amazing people I've had the joy and pleasure of meeting over the years.
That's cool. I find it wild. I love the alphabet thing. That's a good idea. I feel like we play that in the car when we're driving somewhere far with kids, right? So we've already played that game. You probably need to play it when you're trying to just keep your mind sane. Something else you told me that I liked was you said, if you have a product that's better than anything else out there in the world, prove it. And I feel like that's something you've done. Like, how do you go about proving it, though?
Yeah, it's really simple, but difficult, right? So conceptually, it's easy. You release the narrative, and you get this stuff to the people that need it when they need it. The concept is very, very simple. The challenge is checking your ego to allow everybody else to control your narrative. And that's what I think a lot of companies are afraid to do, because they're so worried about how their product is perceived that they feel they need to control that. And what I believe is that instead of spending all this time trying to convince people that your product is a certain thing, just be that thing. And then find the people that benefit from it, your point of differentiation, and put it in their hands at the moment when they need it most. Mm-hmm. So the formula is not very complex. The execution, however, requires some real humility and risk.
How do you make sure that they are going to share it, though? Just because you got it in front of them doesn't mean they're necessarily going to share it. And sometimes people, gamify this a little bit, and they incentivize people to share their stories, stuff like that. Are there ways that you're going about to make sure you incentivize them without tainting that very real, honest feedback?
No, not really. We just we've relied in the past on the law of averages, and sometimes we'll tell people, if they come up and tell their story and they're like, oh my gosh, this stuff's amazing, be like, hey, if you want to share that publicly, go for it. But we haven't actively solicited that. Again, we've been really, really focused on being honest and transparent. And I think that's why we've had so much success, both at retail and with our consumers, because we're not pushy. A story was shared with me internally recently about some competitors that are trying to enter the cramp stopping space, that are just like really, really pushy. And we've been told by some high profile customers that, like, look, they like the fact that we take a science forward approach and not a sales forward approach. And that, especially with like the professional sports and things like that, where it's like, look, we're going to trust the narrative to you. And as a result, we get some real organic exposure, and that exposure is so true and so captivating. Where I remember one time a few years ago, Francis Tiafoe, on his 21st birthday, made the quarterfinals of the Australian Open, and he's sitting there in his post-match interview talking about how pickle juice is the reason he's still there. But then he was like, oh, it tastes terrible, but it works so well. And I was asked, like, does that bother you? And I said, absolutely not, because it's about the function. And if somebody's sort of giving you that backhanded compliment, it's real, it's authentic. And we're sort of unapologetic about the flavor, and we hope people enjoy the flavor. But if they're like, oh man, I don't even want to drink it because I don't like the flavor, but it works so well, I will anyway. It's hard to imagine a more real and honest review than that.
Mm-hmm. What's your Achilles heel? Because I look at other, let's just say, drinks that are in this space to a point, Prime Energy being one that I'm going to call out because I've called them out on other things. One of the things they did very well is they went viral very well. Like, well done to the team. They crushed it. The hard part of that was I don't think the product was able to live up to everything that they were wanting from it. And we saw that decline. But they're still in a good spot overall, relatively speaking. the benefit to going after it the way that you have, the way that I see it in my brain is you're incrementally adding very real diehard people, but what's the area that you have to be careful with as far as making sure that the company maintains where it's at, maintains momentum, et cetera?
I think it's staying true to what we are as we scale and doing it in a way that people, our internal team buys in and doesn't feel that sort of staying on that course of who we are and remembering what got us here, and differentiating that directive with not with them feeling like they can't have their own voice. And I think, I alluded to it earlier. That's honestly a challenge I personally face every single day. It's something that I don't always get right, that I'm trying to get better at, and making these people feel like this isn't my thing. This is a thing, and it needs to stand by itself, independent of my beliefs. And I think it's kind of like, pride in a child, I suppose, right? Like, everybody thinks their kid's better than everybody else's kid, sort of thing, and should be the starting quarterback.
100%.
But and it's having sort of the confidence to allow that thing to organically morph into what it's going to be, and let that child sort of grow up on its own. And I think that's what I'm trying to, as we scale, do a better job of. And I've noticed one of the things I need to do better as a leader is trust that, and trust the people who've gotten us here, and not be afraid that the message will get diluted, or that we would get away from our identity. So I think that's the biggest one.
That's huge. I feel like this is a good opportunity to actually just share one that I've seen here. I'm going to share my screen, and let's share this tab here. And hopefully the sound should come through on this if I set it up correctly. Let's see. Can you hear it?
Not yet.
Bummer. Okay, so you don't hear it.
No,
I might not have that set up correctly, unfortunately. I will share that link in the show notes then for everybody. But it's really fun because there's like a 6-year-old kid interviewing Cam. It's Cam Jordan's kids, right? It's actually his kids interviewing him, but they go into Pickle Juice a little bit. Good opportunity there. But maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that, like what you know about that clip then.
It's adorable. And I joke, I say, I don't know if it's the best coverage we ever got, but it's definitely the cutest. And it was really cool. I talked about partnerships earlier with some of our customers, and actually that was sent to me by the head dietitian at the Saints. So
Nice.
it's really cool that we've been able to develop those real relationships. But what I love about that is sort of the backhanded compliment, right? Is the athletes asked, like, do you like pickle juice? Do you use it? And he's like, yeah, I use it all the time. And the kid's like, I hate pickle juice. And it's like, it's awesome. It's so cute. But I think the kid pivots, like at the end, is like, I like it. But
yeah. I think
it's real, right?
Right. And I think the fact that you have made that be the thing consistently is what speaks volumes about it. And to a point, you and I have talked about this, there's like an ethical thing about making sure that you just allow people to speak honestly about the product, but you don't allow, you don't just keep it, the ethics there. You're ethical in everything you do about this business. And one of the things that you told me that I really appreciated is that you use 100% recycled materials, not because you have to, but because it's what you believe is right. How do you define ethical business in CPG?
I think it's tough. I think it's one of those things that it's hard to define, but you know it when you see it, sort of thing. Because I think it's you aim for perfection in order to achieve excellence. And anybody that works with us can tell you that I'm kind of a stickler, and maybe a little bit too much at times for every little detail. But to that end, we've achieved some really cool stuff. I remember it was pretty recently when Brendan Cybulski is our PCNL manager and deals with compliance and procurement, and he's the person who got all these organic vendors in place, or recycled product vendors in place. And the state of Maine is imposing a very strict carbon neutral policy for packaged goods, and I think it's in 2027. So, and he had like a sort of a confusing interaction with them, and it came out that they're like, oh, it's because you're already compliant. And that was really cool. Like, we are compliant with a policy that doesn't yet exist, and we were also told that we're the only company they've talked to that is. And I think it's really cool when those moments happen and you realize that you don't have to be huge to make a difference. And these little things you do every single day that may not in the moment seem like they matter, and you have that one big moment, you're like, oh dude, that's unreal that we achieved something that no other company in the United States has been able to achieve. When Europe mandated tethered caps for plastic bottles, we were able to turn that around, source it. As a matter of fact, tethered caps weren't even available in the United States yet because the demand wasn't high enough. Sure. So we were able to get those overseas, get them over to the US, create that product, make that product, and make it available for that market before anybody else. And that's a credit to our team who believes in that, who believes in their urgency and their mission. And again, I don't know if they recognize it in the moment, but it's when you see how much further ahead than everybody else you are as a result of these little tiny efforts, it's really, really rewarding.
I love the mindset of optimize for where things are going, not where they are now. I've said this for years in the SEO space, where it was like, what Google actually is aiming for. That might not be a part of their algorithm yet, but that they're going there. So optimize that way, which was optimizing around the human being and the way that the human being was thinking instead of gaming the search engine. And then the flip side, I'd say like AI is that same way. Right now, AI, there's an opportunity to scam AI a little bit by doing some of the things we did in SEO years ago. But I think that AI is going to continue to do more and more and more to go towards that human user as well. And so the better you can align yourself towards where AI is going, the better off. I can't attribute this to anyone because I feel like so many people have said this, but the way that you win is to stay in the game. If you quit the game, you lose. Like, that's the guaranteed way to lose, but the best way to win is to stay in the game. And so instead of focusing on hacks, if you focus on sustainability of the company, of where things are going, you position yourself very well to be in the game 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 100 years from now.
Yeah, I think it's also why we take such a focus on earned media, right? And I think AI scrubs verifiable things, and the more verifiable, credible third-party data that you put out there rather than paid advertising and stuff like that, the more credible you are, not only to your consumers, but to these engines. And the fact that, chat is going to allow inexperienced purchases from Walmart.com. I mean, that's game changing, where you're now, and social media platforms have gone down this path as well. But now in social platforms, you had to go find the thing, but now the thing can find you. So I think that's a huge opportunity for hyperfunctional beverages, for things that actually make a difference, that treat an ailment. And if you have a lot of credible sources out there telling that story for you, the probability of appearing in an AI and then that turning into a transactional conversion is a lot higher than a bunch of people just paying for ads.
Yeah, I love it. Something else you're doing that I think is really interesting as a CEO is you track your own hours. How did that get started? Why? Why does that matter to you?
It's leading from the front, I suppose. It's doing, when you're in an emerging company or a growing company, I tell people all the time that the work will always precede the reward. You kind of have to create the need for the job before you have it. So during the interview process, I tell people all the time, I said, if you're going to join a growing company, it's oftentimes a lot more work for a lot less money. Not a lot less money. We treat our people as well as we possibly can, and I know we're treating them better than most companies now. But from a work demand perspective and a resource perspective, and you can't demand something of your people that you aren't willing to do yourself. And for me, as we evaluate professional performance, we're really only looking at three things, right? It's output, input, and culture. And I really think that you have to have two of those three as a minimum to be successful. And if you can control what you can control, and input is the easiest thing to control. It's literally just showing up. And I think if people see you showing up, they'll be more inclined to show up. So it's really that simple. It's work harder than anybody that works for you. And that I can't control if they believe in how I operate. I can't control in what the outcome is going to be of what I do. But what I can do is control how much I do it.
You've challenged me. I don't do it on an ongoing basis, but I do it periodically, maybe about once a month or so. It doesn't always end up being once a month, where I will do an hourly audit of everything that I'm doing. I'll track it for a week or so. Maybe I need to do it every single day and just get in the habit of that. And so I appreciate it. But to your point, I got this concept from Dan Martell. Dan Martell has a really good book called Buy Back Your Time. And that's what got me starting to at least do it as infrequent as I do compared to doing it daily as you. But how can I even optimize my own time if I don't know where all of my time is going? So as the CEO, but if I can actually write down all of the things that I'm doing, then inevitably what I look at is I'm like, why am I spending my time doing this? This is a thing that I can easily hire somebody to do, so I can do these other things that I don't have somebody that can do. And so I've actually found it to be a very beneficial thing for me, not shackles, but something that has helped free me up as well.
Yeah, and you make a really good point, William. A lot of times when we encourage other people to do that too, and eliminate the noise, and sometimes that can come across as sort of being controlling and stifling creativity, but really what you're doing is encouraging them to focus on the things that matter. Mm-hmm. And the things that matter but they matter not just to the output of the organization, but to that person, because it gives them worth and value, and it allows people to realize that, man, I am so much more capable than I thought I was, because I allowed myself to be pushed out of my comfort zone a little bit. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing these things I had no clue I was able to do. But, I noticed two things when I started tracking my time. One, I shifted my day completely. So I realized that I was wasting about 2.5 hours a day just by going to bed too late. So now what I do is I try to go to bed early and I wake up early. And the reason I do that is because the morning is a lot more flexible than the evening. You have more options.
Totally agree.
So I'll get up at like 4:30 in the morning.
I was going to ask how early we're talking. I'm not at the 4:30 zone yet.
Well, my alarm clock's set for 6, but it's very rare that it rings.
So how are you going to bed? How early are you going to bed in order to get up at 4:30?
Honestly, as early as I can, and that might be 8, might be 8:30.
Good for you.
It's when you sit around. I'm trying to be more, even that decompression time, I'm trying to be more sort of creative with, and instead of watching TV, we're challenging one another to read every night. It's just more engaging and stimulating, and I joked the other day, we're like, man, we just stare at these phone screens where maybe it'd be more productive and useful and also like decompressing to stare at a book.
100%.
So we're going to try that and kind of join our own little mini book club. So it's just little things like that. And it doesn't feel at all like it's workaholic type behavior. It's really just shifting your perspective and shifting things and noticing that you get so many more rewards out of being creative. It's sort of delayed gratification rather than pursuing the immediate dopamine high, if you will. And I think as we have so many distractions, and I'm guilty of it too. Like I can appear disengaged because I'm thinking about 1,000 things at once. But with so many short-term distractions, to consciously try to focus on those other things, and then I wake up in the morning and I have options, right? I can make a nice breakfast. I can lay in bed a little longer. I can go get a workout in. I can go to the office early, and that just having those options reduces your stress.
Mm-hmm. I just last night finished up a book that I was reading called Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Carolyn Leaf. It's literally become one of my favorite books. So I had to find a new one. And so I just finished that one last night. But just in the mail today, I have to give a shout out, buddy of mine, Clayton Christopher, who was on the show earlier, sent me From Strength to Strength. And so I've got a new book. I know exactly, it's, downstairs, right where I keep all my stuff. And so I'm excited about that. But I got to ask you, if you're thinking about reading a book then, is there a book that's on your list that you're like, this is a book that I'm excited to read?
Yeah, I'm reading The Inner Game of Tennis right now. Which is a great read. I mean, it's sort of timeless. It was written in the 70s and it's still very, very relevant. The Five Dysfunctions of Teams is another one that's really cool. I'm looking forward to reading more books on soft leadership. I think that's a skill set I need to improve on. And appear less authoritative and improve my listening skills. Because, it's not enough to care. Your audience needs to know that you care. And I think we can all get caught up in being results focused or looking at tangibles and quantifiable things that we give people, and we forget that qualifiable things matter. So that's something I'm working on. I'm looking forward to exploring more within myself. So yeah, that's next.
I love it. You're traveling, so you're not by your whiteboard today, but if I remember correctly, you had 3 words written on your whiteboard the last time we talked. What 3 words were those?
It's urgency, accountability, and collaboration. But we've sort of pivoted, and we had a very drawn out process intentionally that involved everybody at different levels of the organization to try to create our core values. And it's something I really believe in. And we've adopted the acronym CASIC, collaboration, accountability, solutions mindset, integrity, and then champion mindset. So those are the things that I think are really, really important to pursue. Those are things I need to constantly think about, and those are things that I want everybody that works with us to really value and focus on and promote, because I think those 5 things, more than anything else, are super critical.
You said that it was intentionally a drawn out process. Why intentionally a drawn out process to get to your core values?
I didn't want it to feel like checking boxes. I didn't want it to be something that was a reflection of a specific moment in time. I wanted people to think about it, take different looks at it, take different approaches at it, sort of creating intentional disruptions to really get them to think, to reflect, to discuss, to talk, and to really believe that this isn't just being parroted from the top of the mountain, if you will, and then it really is something that we can all get behind and we can all believe in. And I think a lot of people think those are just words on a board. And they're new, right? And until that we create an environment where those aren't just words on a board, they are just words on a board. So it's important that every leader, myself included, embraces those and exemplifies those so that they can, in fact, be embraced by everybody else. You can't force somebody to do a thing to have a true value. They have to believe it and want it.
I totally agree. When we went through our values, we didn't want to just basically say, here's what we ideally want to strive to be, but who are we today? Because at the time, we were a very effective agency, right? So like when we were doing this, it wasn't like we were broken. Like, no, we're effective. Can we figure out why we're effective? What are the things that has made this team be effective? And so we just tons of brainstorming around this of all of the different things that are going on. And then we try to say, okay, how do we narrow this down? I don't want 7, right? How do we narrow this down to the ones of the absolute most important? So that way it's like you could have a lot of other things. And we narrowed it down to 3 that we felt bubbled up the most to our mission statement. For us, the mission statement was to amplify joy through profitable business growth. The whole point of what we do is to grow businesses profitably. If we don't do that, we're not actually doing the thing that people are hiring us to do. That's it. Mm-hmm. But the amplified joy piece to us is there will be times when the economy is down and no matter what you're doing, they might not be profitable for a quarter, a year. Like these things happen. Or they hopefully still profitable, but maybe not as profitable as we had hoped that they would be. And so we still want to amplify joy, right? Because there's still ways we can can we make the experience joyful? Did we do what we say we're going to do? Are we trying new things? Like, are they looking at this saying, if everything else was okay, we know that you guys would have us in a better spot. We understand why we're not. So we narrowed it down to 3, which was to be innovative. We're not going to be very effective if we're not innovative. That is a core part of what we have to be. We need people on our team who are like, I'm going to think about how to do this better than the 99% of other agencies out there. Be accountable, because again, if you have the best idea in the world, but you don't actually follow through on it, it's not going to be effective. And to be human, because ultimately understanding that every single one of these people that's coming to the table, from our clients, our vendors, us, ourselves, our families, all of these human things are a part of what's in there. And if we don't understand and recognize that, then we're likely to be short with people or whatever that might be. And that's going to deteriorate things faster than anything else. And so we said, these are the 3 things. If we focus on those 3 things, that's going to make a difference. One of the things that you told me that I really appreciated was you said, don't make it about you, make it about the product. What's the dangers when leaders make it about themselves?
Yeah, I think we can all become a little guilty of that, right? Particularly if we are creators or have a change agent mindset, because we have to buck convention, and you can't innovate without breaking stuff down, and finding that balance between making it about the thing and conveying that in a way that people don't think it's about you is really important, and something that I'm probably not as good at as I want to be, because people identify it with me. They identify certain approaches we take, and that can come off as unwavering, which is challenging. And then people think it's about you, even though you're really just trying to protect that baby, if you want. And I think it just the danger with that becomes that you end up marching by yourself. And you can't scale unless you can get other people to march with you, and I think that's the danger.
Yeah, I think I saw Curtis Matsko posted on LinkedIn just this morning, and Curtis is the CEO over at Portland Leather Goods, and I think they're on track for $200 million this year. So they've done a great job, and And he basically quantified out, I think he's got like 1,500 employees, and he figures out 40 hours a week for them, 60 hours a week for him. And he like adds all these hours in. He's like, I do like 0.1% of the work of our company, right? Like the output. And so, and when you look at it from that frame of mind, he's like, the best thing that I can do is enable everybody else in the company to be as successful as they can be versus it all about me.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset.
I want to chat a little bit about the acquisition, if that's okay. You were recently acquired by PE, which we said, congratulations. What made this the right time?
There are a few factors. I think it was the way we were going to market, and really harvesting where we could from an opportunity perspective was maxing out. We knew we needed some additional resources. We knew we needed to pivot in order to continue to grow and scale rather than getting into preservation mindset. We knew directionally that we had to pick a lane. Were we a manufacturing company? Were we a brand? Were we an idea? Were we a solution? And that lane aligned more with a CPG brand mentality. So we had it, and we still are trying to become that. So it was just a lot of things, and we found who we thought was the right partner, and that too is very important.
I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, Dave Mortensen. He's the founder of Anytime Fitness. And I think that there is a conversation. I don't remember if it was a team that he was acquiring or something along those lines, but he told me that sometimes it's better for businesses to go with an acquirer who maybe is offering less financially, but is the right acquirer, right? It's like the right culture fit. It's the right trajectory of where they're going. It's not always about what the multiple is of the EBITDA.
Yeah, I think, and we found the right partner that also gave us the right tools, but they're also challenging us to be the thing that we want to be. And that is to say, they're holding us accountable to being good stewards, not just of our communities, but of our people, to be focused on making sure that they are taken care of both financially and culturally, and that we're trying to shift a culture, which is interesting, right? Because you have to get them to really believe that you can be a legacy employee and still change. And they're like, well, we were a completely different thing 5 months ago. How am I supposed to believe that this is genuine? And a lot of companies can struggle with that, right? Mm-hmm. Particularly technology companies that struggle to evolve into the new version of that technology. I remember when I was working for Warner Brothers when they acquired AOL, and I thought it was fascinating that AOL, who was at the time was the number one dial-up service in the world, but imagine walking into that office one day and say, hey, we are the best at a thing that's about to be obsolete.
Sure.
So now we have to stop doing that thing that we are the best in the world at and do a completely different thing in order to stay relevant. So again, conceptually, sure, we get that, but how do you do that and get and understand when to do it, get everybody to believe it, to buy into it? Some of that comes probably with some forced direction where it's like, look, we're doing this, and then they kind of see the why and the how. They see the why after the how, which is tough because you can find yourself on an island during that process. And hopefully that the results happen. People see what happens and why before you have a complete mutiny. But yeah, those are necessary things, and I think that's why that's probably one of the things that leaders have to force themselves to do is make decisions that may not be popular at the time, but are necessary, are right. And, people inherently resist change. People fear the unknown. And as leaders, it's our job to steer the boat into those dark waters, whether the people on board want to in the moment or not, but then when they come out of the other end and be like, oh yeah, okay, now I know why we did that.
Yeah. They may be fearful of the unknown, but you have put the time in to develop that trust where they say, all I see are dark waters. I'm a little bit scared of that, but I trust you to lead well. And so I might not agree with that decision, but I trust you. So let's go for it. You teach a course on entrepreneurship, which I thought was pretty cool. What's the number one mindset you wish every founder had before they even got started?
I guess, can I cheat and say there's a couple of things that I think are equally important?
Please.
I think the first thing is have a true point of differentiation. We talked earlier about it's not about you, it's about the thing. And that also means that if you are trying to be an entrepreneur because you don't want to work for somebody or you want to be independently wealthy, you're going to fail. If you want to be an entrepreneur because you want to change something, you want to create something, you're passionate about that, you'll have a higher chance of success. The second thing I think is equally important is having the willingness and ability to fail. And by that I mean is you can't become financially dependent on your thing until that thing is ready for you to be financially dependent on it. If you don't recognize that and you have to go into the piggy bank earlier, you're not sort of nurturing the thing the way it needs to be nurtured, and it won't grow. And sometimes that means knowing when it's time to get outside resources, knowing when you need to change how you scale and things like that. So I think those are the most important things.
That's huge. You have also learned a lot about business from rugby. You said that organized team sports have taught you everything you need to know, or at least a good chunk of it. What are some things that you learn about leadership and business from sports?
I guess the best analogy I would use is that some of the most successful games I've been part of had some pretty mundane individual statistics, and some of the best statistical games I've ever played resulted in losses because not everybody's contributing. And what I've found in playing and now coaching sports is that I would rather have a bunch of above average performers performing together than a small group of exceptional performers performing individually. And that holds true almost at any level. And I think, I say that a imperfect plan executed perfectly will usually defeat a perfect plan executed imperfectly. And that's the power of collaboration.
Yeah, there's another example that's probably way overused, but the idea of rowing together. And I remember when we started down our path of implementing traction, EOS traction, by Gino Wickman, one of the things they talk about, it's like, if you can imagine, it's like you're on a boat and this person's rowing this way and this person's rowing this way. It's like you could have phenomenal rowers, right? But if they're rowing in even just slightly different directions, you're not going to be nearly as effective as somebody who's less of an effective rower themselves, but they are all rowing together in unison in the same direction.
Correct.
How do you define success today differently from when you were 25?
I think when I was 25, success was a purely capitalistic statistic. I think success now, and obviously I'll acknowledge there's a Maslowian component, right? I mean, you have to have enough of those things to be able to not worry about food, shelter, et cetera, and live a lifestyle that you're comfortable living. So I'll caveat it by saying that. But beyond that, I think success is creating something that outlives you. And that could be influencing another person's life in a positive way. It could be creating a sustainable brand. It's the value of giving more than you take. It's the ability and willingness to sort of fall on the sword when you need to be able to fall on the sword in order to benefit others, to be misunderstood in a moment while waiting for the truth to present itself. I think that's how I look at success now.
That's a really good definition. That's one that I haven't heard before. And I think the thing that I like about it the most is that it opens the door for everybody, because not everybody's going to, start a 10-figure business, but a lot of people can have that lasting impact. Like you said, that could be as simple as like a grandma or a grandpa who have made an impact on, their grandchild who goes on. This could be, you had a big impact on your neighbor. Like this, there's a lot of ways in which you can create that type of success. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. One of the most powerful lessons I ever learned in my life was from my father. And it was not even an intentional lesson. It was just him presenting part of his mindset. And we used to get together every Sunday morning when I was in high school and read the newspaper. And I remember at one point, there was this like double page fold out ad for the brand new Jaguar XJ12. And I remember my dad saying, "Man, I'd love to have this car." And I was like, "Well, so buy it. You can afford it. And your other car's got like 200,000 miles on it." He goes, "Yeah, but if I did that, what would I have to dream about?" And I was like, and that was so powerful to me. And in that very moment, I understood why some of the wealthiest people in the world are the least happy, because they pursue that one measure of success that they've been told to think equates happiness without really understanding that that's not it.
I go for a walk fairly regularly in the afternoon, just a short little, 10, 15-minute walk. But I found it to be one of the best ways to kind of clear my head and think about things differently, just getting away from the computer. And I was thinking about this literally just last week. I was like, the interesting thing about dreams is that they are potentially, more often than not, far enough away that they're exciting. But the things that are, let's just say, and I had a word for it, and I don't remember the word that I wanted to use, but like things that are just within reach, it's literally right there within reach. Oftentimes people are more frustrated by it, right? Because it becomes an obsession. It's like, I'm right there. I'm going to obsess over, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work this much harder. I'm going to do this much more. Whereas it's usually not a source of excitement for a lot of people. And a lot of times it becomes a source of frustration. Why don't I have this yet? Right? Whereas a dream, it's sometimes so far off that you're like, I'm just excited to think about what this could be one day, maybe never, but like, it's fun to dream. We've started to get to know you, which I really appreciate. I always like having a portion of the show where we get to know who is Filip Keuppens. You've told me before that you have always been somewhat into fringe subcultures: skateboarding, freestyle skiing, rugby, motorcycles. Is there one of those that you are still involved in today?
Yeah, I'm still involved in rugby at a couple different levels. I'm on the USA Club Rugby Competitions Committee for Sevens. I'm currently the director of rugby for the Dallas Rugby Club. Yeah, it's rewarding. The game has given me a lot. It's humbling, but it's rewarding. And being out there. And the thing that's amazing about it is that you lead people to do a thing that they have to pay to do, that is tough, requires sacrifice, time, effort, energy, and you have to get them to do it because they love it and they have a common objective. And I think that has really helped me be sort of results oriented and get people to understand the pursuit of the bigger picture, and understand that like suffering in the moment, if you will, and sacrificing in the moment can pay dividends in the end, and understanding that whole type 2 fun mentality. But I think the thing that really attracts me to those fringe things, as we've discussed before, is that the people who are in those spaces are truly passionate people. They really, really believe in something that isn't accessible, oftentimes isn't popular, and is oftentimes isolating from the norm, if you will. But I think that's what draws me to those things is that these people are truly, truly passionate, and they're driven, and they are unwaveringly committed to that thing. And I think that's a really contagious energy.
I was going to ask why. I'm also going to ask how, because growing up in Ohio, where I did, there was one kid in my school who played hockey. We did not have a hockey team, so he had to go somewhere else to play hockey. And I didn't even know that we had a professional hockey team in Ohio. I mean, like, that's just how little it was looked at where I was. I was in Canton, right? So Pro Football of Fame, football, basketball, baseball, sure, hockey, what? So, but how did you end up getting turned on to this sport? Did you watch a commercial for it? Like, what made you say, like, rugby, this thing that nobody else in my school is playing, I'm going to go do that. Mom, sign me up for rugby. And she's thinking, I don't even know where to find a rugby. Like, how?
Actually, it was a really weird story, because I was a really passionate mogul skier, and I got pretty good at that. And I wanted to find something to do in the summer to stay in shape, and that sort of gave me that same sort of joy. And it was interesting because rugby was really the first team sport that I became a part of, and before that, I really didn't understand how to operate as a team. So it was very valuable to me to learn those lessons. But I jokingly tell people, being from Belgium originally, that I wasn't any good at baseball, basketball, or hockey, or any of the American sports, or football. So I had to find a sport y'all sucked at too. I'm just kidding, though. I'm just kidding. No, it was again, I think I remember just meeting some rugby players. I was really fascinated by their passion for it, their commitment to it, sort of the humbling components of the game that I still really appreciate. The fact that the number on your back is dictated by the position you're playing that day is a constant reminder that nobody's bigger than the game. That there's one referee on the field that has a sole discretion of the law and how to interpret and apply it. So we answer to that one referee no matter what, and we have to manage that referee and collaborate and work with that referee. And then I think the power of, after every single game, the home team will socialize, over drinks and food with the visiting team. And I think that's so powerful, cool, to be like, we just literally spent 80 minutes physically beating each other up. And now yeah, we're going to step back and say, we're kindred spirits. And I think those things are so attractive to me about that game. And I feel an obligation to give back to it, because it gave so much to me. And I feel that whenever we're fortunate to experience something that gives to us, we should try to give it back, so that future generations can experience that same thing we did.
You have already 10x'd my rugby knowledge. I didn't know any of that, but I find that all very, very cool. I especially like that idea of getting together even with the opposing team when you're done. If you are walking out on, I believe it's called the pitch, the rugby pitch, is it right? So if you're walking out the rugby pitch, what's your walkout song?
Oh man, I was never a hype up song guy.
Okay.
I was always a guy that, like, during warm-ups, I was kind of jokey and loose and goofed around a bit. And the thing that would really get me into the game is like that first hit, like getting hit. And it was kind of like that woke me up, and that sort of got me going. And that was my thing. And what's really amazing is how pre-game warm-up stuff has changed almost 180 degrees from what we used to like identify, and it's less now about hyping up as it is like calming and centering. And at halftime of every single game, before anybody says anything, we go through a box breathing exercise. It's to center our minds, to calm down, to be collected, to be present. And yeah, those days of like smashing your head against the locker.
Yeah, ACDC, go, right, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's still a thing for some people, but most people I know now, and especially at the really elite levels, it's about centering the mind, being present, and being able to tap into those that neural component that you need firing, and to act in a more cerebral way. It's really, really fascinating to see that transition over the past few years.
That's interesting. Do you have insight to know if that's true outside of rugby as well? Are you seeing that, from hearing that from NFL, NBA, et cetera?
Yeah, I actually see it now. When I'm watching different sports, I'm seeing that, particularly the ones where like the halftime's like on the court, or where you can see what's happening at halftime, and you see it in all these sports where the players will sort of circle up, and you'll see them going through these box breathing exercises, and that it's a very rehearsed, strategic conversation rather than a rah emotional conversation. It's really, okay, let's take this time, let's think about, analyze what is happening, and create solutions to the things where we need to make adjustments, rather than, hey bro, make your tackles. Well, yeah, we know that. Like, that doesn't help. That's not constructive.
No, it's not. Yeah, I mean, I can say that I like the sound of that. My daughters play volleyball in high school, and there are definitely games where I've watched and I'm like, they only lost this game because of their mental game. Like they're more than capable of winning this, but something got in their head and they weren't able to shake that. And you almost kind of want to just like look at the coach and you're like, now's the time to like go through some kind of like, box breathing, something. It's like they got to reset their brain, and then they'll get back out there and play. And so I hope that continues to catch on more and more. I like that.
Yeah, no.
I understand that you wear the same outfit every day, mostly every day. Is that about focus, or is that just about saving, laundry days?
I think it's part of a routine. Almost every single day, I'll wear a branded shirt. I'm ironically not wearing one today because I have an event tonight. Yeah, I wear a branded shirt. It's says Pickle Juice on it. I don't know why I started doing that. It's kind of caught on. A lot of people are doing it as well. It's one less decision I need to make. I can get from my bed to my car in 11 minutes in the morning. So it's just one of those things where it allows me to start my day thinking about the things I need to be thinking about, thinking constructively. I think psychologically it helps me be present in that moment of the company, that I'm representing that brand. I'm in that mindset. I try not to be distracted. But yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, the same reason Mark Zuckerberg does it, right? One less decision.
I appreciate that. Zuckerberg, like you said, is that way. Steve Jobs was that way. Dean Kamen, a lot of people don't know him, but the inventor of the Segway scooter. But before that, he was also the inventor of the insulin pump. He's got a, serial inventor, I should say. And there's something to that. I've even gone as far as saying to my daughters, one of the things I talk about is there are other decisions that you can eliminate having to make as well. If you just know what your goals are. So if you say your goals are to be healthy, do you believe that working out is likely to lead towards being healthy or lead you away from being healthy? And it's like, well, it's going to lead you towards your goal. It's going to, you don't have to think about this. So you can actually just know, I wake up, I work out. Going to bed on time. Is it more likely to help you reach your goals or less likely to help you reach? It's going to increase the likelihood then you just know, okay, I go to bed on time. And so there's a lot of decisions that if you really think about what your goals are, those decisions can be made for you. And you don't have to make that decision again every single day. What time do I want to go to bed? Well, I've already established what time I want to go to bed.
For sure.
Filip, it has been so much fun getting to know you today, talking to you, learning from you. I feel like we've been able to dig deep into some things that are unique to the way that you guys have approached business. If people wanted to follow you or work with you in some way, what is the best way for them to reach out, stay in touch, get in touch?
Yeah, you can find more about Pickle Juice at picklepower.com. You can find me on LinkedIn or social media. I guess fortunately or unfortunately for me, I'm pretty easy to find given the spelling of my name. So, I think there's only one other Filip Keuppens out in the world that spells his name the way I do, and he doesn't look like me. So
that's helpful.
I think he's got a shaved head. So if look for the guy that doesn't have a shaved head and click on that LinkedIn profile. And but yeah, it's I'm always happy to talk to people and learn and collaborate. I really genuinely believe in a learning mindset. We either win or we learn. So I embrace those opportunities. So.
Well, again, thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today. And thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.